Joe, what went into the decision to bring up Wheeler?
With Carlos being an uncertainty for a day or two, we felt that we could use the extra bat and seeing a lot of lefties, so we brought him up.
Usually it takes it more than 1 or 2 days with a cortisone shot. When's a realistic time that you could get Beltran back?
Oh, I think you'll start to have a pretty good idea by Saturday where we're headed with this, if we can get him back fairly quickly.
And Cervelli in there, just day game after a night game?
Yeah, and we're also seeing a lefty too.
Meredith.
Joe, your bullpen has been a strength all year long, but if you look at their ERA in July to their ERA in August, it's over a run more.
Yeah.
So what's the reason for that?
Well, I mean, everyone always, is looking for a reason for everything that happens in this game, and sometimes what happens is it comes down to execution, and sometimes they're just not as sharp as other times. And is there always a reason? No, I think it's what you go through during the course of a season where players are going to have better days than others, they're going to have better weeks than others, they're going to have better months than others. Lately it's been a little bit of a trying period for them, but they've always seemed to bounce back when they went through that, and that's what I expect.
Anybody else? Wally?
Joe, are you discouraged at all by the fact that your team hasn't responded to the challenge that faced them coming home this week?
No, I mean because I see the effort there. You look at last night. It's in the 9th inning. We're down 3 runs, and we still have an opportunity to score some runs. Disappointed? No. Are guys frustrated? Yeah. Discouraged? No, I'm not. Are guys frustrated? Sure, because of why we play this game. We play this game to win and to win championships and to get into the playoffs and do those type of things. And there's frustration in the room, but today's a new day, and you got to turn it around.
If you're seeing the effort, what does that tell you? You're seeing the effort but not the results.
Well, how many of you remember when a Hall of Fame manager said that I hit 360 one year and I hit 260 the next, and I was the same guy? It happens. I mean, these are not guys playing with remote controls, in a Nintendo or whatever you want, a Wii game. I mean, it's not. There's the human element, and being off the slightest little is the difference between executing a pitch and getting a base hit. And sometimes it just happens.
Hokie.
Joe, you said yesterday you're going to bring Phelps back as a reliever. What kind of timetable are you looking at? What steps are there?
Until he starts throwing bullpens, I don't think it's, I'm not ready to put a timetable out. Obviously, we felt we could get him much quicker doing that. You don't need to build him up nearly as much. Right now, he's going to play catch, I believe, again today. I got to talk to Stevie to see when the first time he has him off a mound, and then you'll have a better idea.
Sweeney and George.
Joe, as far back as spring training, when we ask you about how your lineup is fit together, you talk about how they work 1 through 9.
Right.
Is that still your overriding factor when you make out a lineup, just how all the pieces fit together as opposed to one guy in a certain spot?
Yeah, I think that's how you have to look at it all the time, because a lineup is not about one guy. A lineup is about 9 guys and how they fit and how they work together, and how it sets up for the other team to bring in relievers against you. It's a team game, even though it's an individual at bat when they go up there. It's a team game, and it's a team lineup, and that's how you have to look at it.
Do you still put a lot of faith in the idea that players like the consistency instead of having to go in there and?
Oh, I think they do like consistency. They go and they look on the board and they know where they're going to be in the lineup every day. I mean, you might change it a little bit from right to left, when you're facing certain guys, but I think they like consistency.
Joe, anything on Tanaka moving forward here?
I believe he's supposed to throw to hitters on Saturday, so we'll have to figure out how we're going to do that. It will, our plan is it'll probably be here, but we got to figure out who's going to face him.
Mark.
Joe, again, the runners in scoring position has become a sort of a epidemic over the course of the season for you guys. Do you still look at that as a flukish stat?
I've never looked at it as a flukish stat.
How do you look at a
I think it's guys being able to take the same approach and the same at bat and relax when there's runners on and there's not runners on. I know some people will talk about it as a flukish stat. I think there's the mentality that goes into that. Now, you can line out 6 times in a row and you can be over, 1 for your last 10 with runners in scoring position, and that's kind of flukish. But I think it's a mindset and being able to relax.
Do you like the way your guys go about the at bat?
I haven't seen anything that tells me that they're squeezing the bat or they're trying too hard. I look at Jake's at bat last night. He just misses the ball. He hits it, he squares it up and just misses it. And sometimes that's what happens.
I guess sort of following what Wally said, then if you like the approach and yet you're not getting the results, what do you do?
Well, you keep running guys out there, and your belief is it's going to change, and that eventually, it's going to be right and it's going to be consistent over a long period.
The other question I had, last night you said it doesn't really matter who's in front of you. It depends how you guys play. When you get – a lot of guys have leaned on the fact that you still have 8 games against Baltimore, you still have Detroit. The deficits are now bigger than the number of games you have left against those teams.
Right.
At what point does that become a concern that it's no longer in your own hands? 5 behind
Right.
Detroit, you only play them 3 times.
Right. Well, it becomes a concern when you get down to the last 3-4 weeks of the season. But it's a concern now. But my bigger concern is us, not the other teams, because if we don't win, it doesn't matter what the other teams do in front of us. So, my focus is still our club. And if we play really good baseball down the stretch, we have a shot.
Sweeney.
Joe, just going back to last night, I think you said that Ellsbury was bunting on his own in that spot.
Yeah.
Is that if it hadn't worked with 2 outs? Would you still consider that a good play, a good risk?
Yeah, I do, because it's a guy that can run. The guy on third base can run. The third baseman is back. So I don't have a problem with that. Now, if you got a slug at home plate and a slug on third base, it's not a good play. But because of the combination of people that were involved in the play, it is a good play.
Mike.
Joe, you for the years you've been here, you've been relentlessly optimistic, but this team just isn't hitting all year. Is there a quiet time where you think, hey, we're just not good enough this season?
No, I don't, because I know how hard it is to play this game. And obviously we're judged on the results. I look at the effort, and I know the results are very important, because if the effort's not there, there's no chance of having results. The effort is there every day. I talked about it yesterday. We had 7 or 8 guys hitting early, trying to figure this out and get going. So I will be optimistic as long as they continue to prepare correctly and they work hard.
But the flip side of that, they work hard. You make them work hard. They want to work hard, and the results aren't there. Could it be that they're just not good enough?
I don't believe that. No, I don't.
And, Dave.
What was that?
Stutter. Kind of playing up that same thing, Joe. This team has had a pretty remarkable run of success in the past 20 years. You've been other places. I think people just come to expect to make the playoffs, maybe win the World Series every year. Does this show kind of how hard it is to do those things and just to get into the playoffs?
Well, yeah, and I think that with the way that baseball has went with the revenue sharing and the TV contracts and everything that's going on, I think you're seeing more parity in the game. It doesn't appear that there's going to be a team that wins 100 games this year. I don't know how many teams are going to win 90 games this year. You're seeing, I think, a group of 30 teams that from top to bottom, there's more competition, and it becomes really difficult. We can look at Boston last year. They won the World Series. They made a few changes, but they didn't make a ton of changes. And this year, for whatever reason, it hasn't worked out for them, and I don't think they expected that. It's not easy to win a championship.